Awesome. Well, good evening, everyone. And thank you so much for coming out this evening. I look forward in the next hour or so to both be presenting you with information as well as, welcoming any questions that you have. My goal really here is for it to be as informative as possible and make sure that you walk away with the knowledge and the information that you need. As usual, there's always the funky things that happen with Zoom. So I will ask that you make sure that you are on mute so that we don't get too much background noise. Because it snowed. I'm actually in Washington, D.C., and we had snow today and it started snowing again. So I may have some background noise with them cleaning up the street. So I want to minimize that as much as possible. So I'd like to go ahead, without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and get into our presentation. So our topic this evening is going to be on personal branding, and in particular, really talking about transitioning from college students to career professional. Why are we even talking about personal branding, and ways in which you can start to think of yourself differently and approach your job search and just your professional career, excuse me, your persona, your reputation, however you want to look at it, a lot differently. So let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, well, when we talk about personal branding, I hope at this point it's not necessarily a new term to you, and even if it is, we can talk about it further. But basically, a personal brand, you can think of it as both your image and your perception. Now, what's interesting about a personal brand is not that you run out there and put something on you or put something together. Your brand already exists in the minds of others. So what we are doing when I talk about personal branding from college students to career professional is to just be mindful and to be aware of managing what that brand is. So your perception, your reputation, the image, the expectation. Another way to think about it is like the promise of value to people when they hear your name, when they see you, when they interact with you, when they hear of you, is your personal brand. So what does that mean now that we're moving from being a college student and going into the working world? That's what we'll interact with further. I want to give you another example. Another way to think about it is when we think of other big names we hear, like Oprah, like Madonna, like Pepsi, like Coke, like Tesla, Volkswagen. I mean, I can go on and on, that if I asked you, what are some of the words, what are some of the adjectives, what are the phrases, what are the things that come to mind for you right away? If I did it to a pool of people, we would find commonalities all around. So it's the same thing. You have that brand. We'll talk about how to manage that effectively and to be aware of the perception or the reputation that's out there. Now, I want to make sure that we're clear when we're talking about personal branding to understand what it is and what it's not. When we talk about personal branding, remember I said earlier that it's already who you are. So really we're talking about your value. Just a few minutes ago, I said your unique promise of value. It's what's authentic to you. So there's authenticity, there's credibility, there's representation, there's strengths, all of the things that make up who you are. What it's not, it's about being popular or coming up with a slogan or being as narcissistic as you can be, or showing how you can be as competitive as possible. That's not what a personal brand is about. So I want to make sure that when we're talking about personal branding, that you're clear on what I mean by that. Now, a strong personal brand is what is going to help you to establish trust and credibility with employers. A lot of the trust and credibility over the 4 years that you have spent at Clark is probably already there. By the time you get to your senior year, there's administrators, there's professors, there's people that just know you and know your name, other students, even new students that come on campus. There's always someone whose name and reputation precedes them. Obviously, I'm talking about in a positive way. So having a strong personal brand, again, that trust and credibility right up front. It allows you to naturally showcase your strength. I'm not asking you to put on a persona. I'm not asking you to then be concerned about imposter syndrome, because I'm not asking you to be anything that you're not. It allows you to seamlessly and naturally showcase what your strengths are. It helps you to be positioned among the sea of college grads, because now it's not just your fellow classmates at Clark that are out there. There are other college graduates that are going to be out there. How am I really standing out from them? Am I saying the same thing? Am I presenting the same thing? Am I just, pulling words that I think sound good, or phrases that sound good, but really have nothing to do with who I am? I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you've heard a lot about someone, or maybe you read about someone online, and you had this big expectation as to what the person was going to be like in person. And you meet the person and it somehow falls flat and it doesn't quite add up. That's what I mean about it being a disconnect, and you want it to be authentic. Who they meet when they experience you should be the same as who they meet online in your LinkedIn profile, who they meet on paper through your resume, who they hear about through referrals. It should be consistent throughout. So then is where you want to think of every piece of how you're operating. Does it line up with your brand? Is it authentic and credible to who you are? And that's essentially the pieces that we're going to take a look at further to make sure that you have a strong personal brand. No surprise, I gave hints about it before. Your brand is with you all along. When I work with people, I tell people it's not about developing your brand. And sometimes people say, developing your brand. You can develop a brand statement, a personal brand statement that encompasses your brand attributes, but your personal brand is with you already. It's already a part of who you are. So you might say, well, Abby, how do I know what it is? Well, if you really are not sure, which is not unusual, right? You're just naturally operating who you are. You may not have had the chance to stop and really think about it and ponder, what's the perception? What is the image? What is the impression that people are experiencing when they engage with me time and time again? Well, you can Google yourself. If you're someone who's been very active in community, in volunteer, or even on campus, Google yourself, see what comes up, what information is coming up. Pay attention. A lot of times what people are saying, and again, we're talking positive things, what people are saying are an indication of our personal brand. What are you being constantly sought out for? When your colleagues reach out to you, if a professor reaches out and asks you to assist with a project or an initiative or a student association or anything that you're involved in, what are they always asking you to do or leaning on you for? What type of expertise or knowledge or participation are they coming to you for? What do people, when people talk about you or introduce you, what words or phrases, adjectives are they using with confidence? Like, this is, here's Ellen, when it comes to anything artistic or creative, Ellen is the person that we want on our team. If you're trying to get the ears of the administrators, if you want to really initiate change at Clark, you really need to have Tim be a part of it, because he's a really good leader. He's really good at galvanizing people. He's really good at getting buy-in and support. Those are the things that you're kind of listening for. Or you could simply ask others, what would you say my top strengths are? What do you believe my top attributes are? What do you believe are some of the areas that I add value in time and time again? If I joined your team, what role do you think that I would play naturally and be very good at it. And those are the things that give you insight to your personal brand. So it's already there, being able to pull it together, put it in a statement, weave it into your 30-second elevator pitch. Those are the things that take time. However, it's already with you. So I'm not asking you then to go find something new to put on. So just keep that in mind. All right. The biggest thing that we're talking about now, and I want you to really keep in mind and keep in consideration, is the fact that you're making this switch. No, I'm aging myself, and some of you may have no idea what I'm talking about, but there used to be a television show way back when called Cheers, right? And it was actually based off of a real bar in Boston, Massachusetts called Cheers. And they had a theme song, and the theme song and the slogan around the show is going to a place where everybody knows your name, right? So you've been on the campus almost 4 years. I, attended Clark, graduated from Clark. I know it's not that difficult that in a 4-year period, you can get to know a lot of people, right? And get to know, feel like you're in a space where people know your name, that you're not necessarily completely lost and invisible. So you're making this switch from going in an environment where you're comfortable, where people know you, where you understand the routine, and now going into an environment where it's completely different, where employers don't necessarily know you, going into work environments, if you already have a job lined up, where coworkers don't you, they don't understand your rhythm, they don't know your personal brand, and they don't know a lot of those things. So you have to now be mindful that what you were able to leverage on as a student and be successful, now we're looking how to pivot some of that as you go into the career world, right? You may be well known on campus, may not be so where you're going. Professors may know you by name, going into an environment, nobody knows your name, right? Your fellow colleagues and students may have always seen you as a leader. You go into an environment, unless you're able to demonstrate, speak up for yourself, give specific examples as to how you're a leader or how you have strong leadership skills, nobody knows that. You're really stepping into an unknown territory and no one knows your name. But just because you're stepping into an unknown territory, it doesn't mean that you have to become a whole other person. It means that you have to be now a lot more mindful that as I'm stepping into this professional world, what are some of the important things that I need to make sure comes across, gets demonstrated in, appearance and communication, in my values, my strengths, the things that I speak up for, whole different world. And that's what we're talking about. So when we're talking now about your personal brand, there are 3 key areas that I want you to go back and take a look at. It's going to take some time to really get clear on it, and that's fine. But what I am introducing you today is enough to get you started and in the right direction. The first thing is that you have to really know yourself and to know your strengths. I started off saying with personal brand, not asking you to make anything up. Remember the elements of personal branding: value, authenticity, credibility, all of those things, right? So I'm not asking you to do something that is not of you. So knowing yourself is important. Part of knowing yourself, what are you really good at? What are your natural strengths and gifts? Natural strengths and gifts mean it just comes to you easily. You don't even have to think too hard about it. When you think of employers, when you think of your ideal job, when you think of your target market, what are some of the top skills that would impress employers? What business solutions do you think you would enjoy solving? If you've had an opportunity to do internships, which of the ones were your most favorite? Because then now, as part of talking about yourself and introducing yourself, you're able to say, my top strengths are. I've had an opportunity to work on projects where I was highly effective in. And then you're going to mention those natural strengths and gifts, right? So part of personal branding is knowing your strengths and knowing yourself. Because when you do that, you're able to exude authenticity, credibility. You're doing what is natural to you. When I talk about skills and strengths, here's what I mean. You know, whether it's leadership, public speaking, acting as a liaison, initiating change, writing, editing. These are just a sample. They're by no means an exhaustive list, but that's what I mean when I say think of your top skills and your top strengths. And think again about things that are very specific to you. Very specific to you. Yes, you want to know what's important to the employer, but what is also important to you time and time again. If someone picks you, what are the top strengths that they're going to see evident and at work in their workplace for that employer? Know your values and your what I call your must-haves. A lot of times people go from college, they don't think too much about values. I need a job. Does it pay well? Am I going to be able to live on my own, have a car, take vacations? And all of those things are great. And all of those things are very valuable. And all of those things are important. But there are other things that make up the professional work experience. And a big part of that are your values, the things that you stand for time and time again. I'll give you an example. Not being able to work in an environment where there's not a degree of predictability and structure. If you know that about yourself, then you're going to struggle to go work for a startup or something that's brand new. If your value is constant challenge and freedom and flexibility, then maybe you don't mind if things are not so structured, but you need to know that about yourself. What is it that you really value in life? If you understand what it is that you value in life, that's going to make a difference in the types of organizations that you'll be drawn to in terms of the mission that you are going to be more committed to working on. So if my value in life is about diversity and inclusion, then it's going to make a difference to the type of environment that I would want to be in. And that would be something that's just a natural part of who I am. People are going to experience that when they get around me, but I can't then go and choose something that goes against my value, which is part of my brand, because it's going to be a disconnect. That's where then I'm going to have to start putting on a persona and putting on something that I'm not. And that's not what we're striving for, right? We want to have that connection. Another way of thinking about it is that what makes you feel proud and fulfilled? What type of projects, what type of activities have you been involved with that you feel most connected to? And when I say connected, I'm talking about that heart connection, right? What gives you purpose and what gives you motivation? Really think about it. Now, you may come up with a laundry list of things, and that's fine. And over time, as you keep going back to that list and you keep twiddling it down, you're going to come up to these core things over and over again. If I had to be in a certain environment, if I had to be at a certain job, what is it that I want time and time again? That it would come natural to me. I would flow. I would not be at conflict in that environment because it's just natural to who I am. That's part of your brand. Examples of some career values would be helping society. You know, does my job directly or indirectly make me feel like I'm helping society or helping others? Does it allow me to have a degree of independence? Do I feel like part of a team? Does it have like a team affiliation, right? Like some people like a Google or, you know, an Amazon, you know, where there's a strong name and a strong brand and there's a certain affiliation with it. Is that something that I value? You know, do I want a job where having contact with the public, that if that's an extension of, you know, my value and something important to me, then those are the things that I want to take into consideration. The other piece is knowing your contributions. What are you offering employers? Yes, you're clear on your strengths, you're clear on what your values are, but why are they going to select you over other students? Why would they select you even over some of your other fellow graduates? What is it that you're offering them? And that's where you go back now to the experiences that you've had, whether they were internships, projects, course assignments. What is it that I brought to that experience that I can now translate it and offer it to an employer, right? What I think of some of my best academic achievements, what could I talk about that would be part of my story? What can I share? Was I the first ever to do something? Did I get the highest grade? Did I create a whole new organization that didn't exist? Did I work with a team of students and convince the administrators to change an entire policy? What are some of those top things? And what can I draw from them to then offer an employer? What is a consistent theme that I'm seeing throughout? I've done all these great things. What is the theme throughout? Is the theme, helping people? Was the theme about bringing about change? Then I can say bringing about change is a key value that I'm bringing to employers. Are there certain subject matters, courses that you just naturally excel or you just have a strong interest in? Because you can, as part of your personal brand, is having a deep passion for something, because that's what's going to drive you. And understanding that and being clear about that completes the package. I know I sound like a stuck record, because we're not doing anything that we're not. We're bringing to the surface who we naturally are, so that when we engage with others, when we describe ourselves on the resume, talk about ourselves in LinkedIn, introduce ourselves in a 30-second pitch, people feel it, see it, and experience it. So many times when people talk to me about the work that I do and I share with them different scenarios, people always say the same thing. I can tell that you're very passionate about what you do. I can tell that you really love what you do. I'm not putting anything on. To me, I'm just talking. I'm just sharing. I'm just, passing along information. But because I have that passion comes through. And I'm not putting on a passion. I'm staying consistent to the things that are naturally who I am. So if I tell someone that my value is honesty and integrity, if I say that one of my values is transformation, there's not always a ton of surprise necessarily there, because they experience it more than I have to say it. And it's something that comes over time. You look at every area of your life. Is it representing my brand? Is it representing who I am authentically, my strengths, my values, my contributions? Is it all coming together? So then now when we have an idea of our brand, and we talked now about managing our brand, and not only in the world that we live in, where technology and online activities play such a huge part, but in COVID, pandemic, shutdown, however you want to call it, environment, there's so much that's happening online. So remember my first definition of personal branding, I said image, perception, and reputation in the mind of others that they have of you, right? So online, they're going to meet you online before they meet you in person, right? If they meet you in person at all. One of my sisters was able to get a new job right in the middle of the pandemic, never met anybody. Everything was done online. So if someone Googles your name, what are they going to see? If they go to your LinkedIn profile, is that up to date? Is that professional? Is that now speaking professional, career-focused language? I can't ignore the Instagram, the Facebook, the TikTok. I'm sure there's so many more that I can't stay on top of. Those are things that are very relevant. What's on your Instagram is, what's on Facebook, if your generation even uses Facebook anymore, but what's out there? is it consistent with your brand? And if it's not, that's where you want to go back and make sure either it's shut down, it's private, or there's a whole new one that's really more reflective of your brand. Same with TikTok. You know, it's cute having these videos and doing all these funny and crazy things, but we've seen time and time again where people have lost out on opportunities, scholarships, programs, you know, dismissed from universities and schools and everything else because of doing some crazy stuff. So you want to make sure that when people meet you and experience online is consistent with your brand. The same in person. Who are they meeting in person? If there is an opportunity for meeting in person. Is there good communication? Is there a positive attitude? You know, is there decent eye contact? And I say decent because these days with a face mask, glasses, and just everything else, I mean, you're just barely trying to keep it together. But, you know, are they feeling at least that they're, you know, engaging with someone that they can feel comfortable with? And what is your signature story? Whether that story gets spilled over into your online activities or when they meet you in person, what is the signature story? What's the hook, right? There's the 30-second pitch, which, you know, you should all be familiar with, but what is a good story that incorporates elements of your brand? What is something that you can share about yourself that at the end they can get a good sense as to who you are? If they have the opportunity to meet you in person. If they don't meet you in person, they should still get elements of what that signature story is through your online representation. So in continuing with understanding the importance of how you come across online with a powerful brand, it's important to remember, have a good elevator pitch, right? Looking right into the camera, talking with people, whether it's Zoom or, you know, Google Meet or whatever the case is. How are you engaging people? How are you getting their attention in the first 15 to 20 seconds? How are you making sure that you are making your presence known? And by that, taking advantage of online activities, online events. I know last summer, there were a number of large companies that even did online job shadowing. I mean, we have had to be creative because of COVID to do a lot online. So you don't want to be the best kept secret. Where are there, you know, online career fairs, online informational interviews? I mean, figuring out ways to do all those things online. You're going to be memorable and you're going to stand out if you're clear on what your brand is, you have a good signature story, and it's woven into your elevator pitch. Are there other ways, if you're a great writer or a great creator, are there other ways to start building some, what I call some digital traffic out there, whether it's starting your own blog or blogging for other outlets or participating in things online that can demonstrate your expertise, that would allow your name to become more familiar, and to allow you to connect with others. Long before we were dealing with the devastation of COVID and what it meant to everyone's life, there have been people who've been able to successfully land new opportunities just from blogging, sharing their journey, or sharing interesting information. Join associations. There may be some associations that you're a part of now. Is there a professional arm? They might have been a student chapter. Is there a professional chapter now that you might be able to continue in? Or are there new organizations now that you have to look and be a part of? And again, we're doing everything online. So make sure that you still take a part of it online. There may be some limited in-person activities, but take advantage of that. What volunteer work could you do? Even in COVID, there's opportunity for volunteer work. One of my sisters participated in a session where they had set up Zoom calls with the senior centers and nursing homes as a way to connect with some of the elderly, because they're shut in. A lot of times they can't see family members. They feel isolated. So there's still things that you can do, or you can read with someone. You know, one of my brothers is going to start doing English as a second language, becoming a tutor, just finding ways to give back and to stay connected. And that's another way to get your name out there. Believe it or not, become a mentor. There are people that are coming up behind you that are going to want to know how you made the transition from college students to professionals. So once you get settled into something, you can, you know, be a voice, you can be encouragement, you can start an online group, you can start a once a month chat of where people share ideas and encourage each other and provide support. So there's plenty of ways to keep making sure that your name is out there and people get to experience you and experience your brand, you know, even if online, in-person activity is limited. So I am going to stop here because I want to make sure that I have plenty of time for questions. I would like to know what your biggest takeaway is and a first action that you will take today, but certainly I am opening it up for any questions that you might have. Okay, someone dropped a question in the chat. It said, what are some good ways to show your personal brand on your LinkedIn? So once you've gone through the process of being clear on what your strengths are, knowing what your value is, you know, pulling out some of your best contributions and knowing what your value is to your employer, you want to make sure that that's demonstrated on your LinkedIn, and it could be part of your intro, part of the summary section. You can talk about maybe the type of projects that you've worked on. You can talk about your strengths, you know, whatever you believe your top strengths are, but make sure that you support it with an example. So here's me just right off the top of my head throwing something out there. For as long as I could remember, I've always been a natural leader. From, you know, starting my own business at 5 years old to launching my university's first, whatever, you know, association, leadership just always came natural to me. That's an example of you now being very clear that leadership is one of your top strengths, you tying it in as a strength in examples of how you've used that leadership strength and sharing it in a way that's of value to people to see, wow, leadership is something that just comes natural to that person. The same way that you can do it in a 30-second pitch. Another way that you can use your personal brand in LinkedIn or any introduction about yourself, part of your summary section, again, is sharing things about yourself that you know to be very true and to be authentic. So it's not sounding like, you know, everyone else. I have great interpersonal and communication skills. I would hope so. You're graduating from one of the top schools. You better have good interpersonal and communication skills, but tell more of a story. Remember, I talked about that signature story. So even if you want to say, I'm a great communicator, or you can say, you know, throughout my life or throughout my college experience, people always commented on my communication skills. As a result, when any main issue needed to be addressed, I was always called to be the spokesperson, or I've repeatedly served as a liaison between the students and administrators when it came to tackling big issues. So you're telling me that you're a communicator, which is nice because a lot of people are communicators, but you're building a story around it. And you're telling me pieces of how that skill or that strength is at work. So now you're inviting me into your world. So I'm learning a little more about who you are. LinkedIn is interesting because LinkedIn is professional, but it still allows you to be able to talk, you know, in a conversational voice to a certain degree if you want to, but to share pieces of yourself. Like if you go to my LinkedIn profile even, yes, it's very professional, but in my summary section, I mean, I talk even about my passion. So don't be afraid to do that. They want to meet people. We're trying to do online more what we're not always going to have a chance to do in person. How can our online representation have an impact during the hiring and the recruitment process? Excellent question, because they're always going to do some research online, always. They're going to look you up, they're going to scan your name, they're going to see something. So if you're working for an organization, for example, that deals with animals or animal rights or protecting animals, and they see a picture on Instagram where you're, with your friends at a dog fight, then clearly that's a disconnect between what they're looking for and who they're seeing you to be. So it does make a difference. Images, pictures, what you share, very important. So it does play a part. So you want to at least keep that information positive, professional. On LinkedIn, for example, if you're not comfortable blogging, because you can write articles on LinkedIn that's associated with your profile, you could just share good information, right? So to be like a source of knowledge, you could show from the things that you're following or the articles that you're sharing where you have a passion or an interest for certain things. So you can do it that way. Any other questions?
Thank you so much for your presentation so far. I've really enjoyed it.
Good.
I'm looking you up on LinkedIn, and I was wondering if you could talk to us. This is a little superficial, but about like taking a correct, like professional photo. I really like your photo, and
oh, okay.
I don't know. I feel like I always show like the photo I'm putting on my LinkedIn to my mom, and she's like, "No, it's wrong. It's wrong. It's just never right." And I just feel like I'm never enough for the labor market or for LinkedIn.
So. Okay, so excellent question. Now we're talking about image. So excellent question. So there's a couple of schools of thoughts around that. When it comes to your LinkedIn profile, I would say, especially in the job search phase, you want to think of your audience. What type of companies am I going after? Am I going after the very traditional, I don't want to say stuffed shirt, but the very, very traditional button-up type image companies? So then I want to make sure that I represent that. If that is, number one, who you're targeting, and if that's authentic to who you are. Am I going after marketing? Am I going after a more creative side of technology? Am I focused more on startups where you could be a little more relaxed or a little more, quote unquote, non-traditional in your pictures, but you do want to have like a pleasant picture. I've had some people had some pictures that looked scary. They're not looking at the camera. They're looking at the wrong angle. You want to at least look pleasant. So whether you make it like an actual suit and tie, if that's something that you're comfortable with, or, just a dress shirt, or just looking, professional, I would let that be your judgment, keeping in mind who your audience is. Now, in terms of, I spent the money and I had my pictures professionally done. That's a personal choice. But certainly not the one where you're at the party or you're just, don't do that. I've seen it all. So I hope I'm not offending you. I've seen it all.
Not at all.
All right. Is there another question? And then I'm going to get to the chat. Yeah.
Abby, there are a couple questions waiting for you in the chat.
Okay. And then I'll go to Ben. All right. I love this question. Talk a little bit about the impact for people who have little to no online representation. An easy fix is setting up your LinkedIn profile and starting to either share information. So start a trail. So you start sharing interesting articles, you're following companies, you're starting a trail. So you're starting some activities. So that would allow you to start to get some online representation. LinkedIn profile always shows up in the top 3 to 5 in terms of results that go along with your name. So you want to create something that's called a customized LinkedIn URL, where you simply go into settings, because LinkedIn automatically gives you name, and then there's the numbers behind it. Get rid of the numbers, make it customized, and just get very active. So it'll get some information on there. It's the strangest thing. You can have negative things online that hurt you, or you could have no things online that also hurt you. So LinkedIn is an easy way to get active, and it creates some juice. If during an interview they bring up something with your name online, how do you navigate that? A couple of things to keep in mind. There's a way that you can clean up what's online digitally. So if you do a Google search, as we call it, Google is now a verb, excuse me, or an adjective. You can, excuse me, I'm talking too fast. You can get that information removed. So if you do a Google search, something comes up online, you're like, I hope they don't find this, or I don't want this associated with my name. See, first of all, where the information is hosted and see if you can get it removed. That would be the first thing. The other thing would be to overcome it with other online information. So that's where, if you have a good LinkedIn profile, then that would come up first. If you wanted to start a blog and start putting posts out there, then that would shift the information elsewhere. But the first place to start, if possible, is to just ask the person to remove it. That would be the best. And that might come up a lot, so just keep that in mind. And Ben, you had a question. I hope the questions in the chat, I hope I addressed those. Just drop a line and let me know. So Ben, I know that you had a question.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your time tonight. My question was, could you talk a little bit more about best practices when it comes to engaging with companies or thought leaders in fields of interest, like via LinkedIn, beyond just like liking or following, like or even reaching out to people that aren't just, second connections, but maybe have some more prominence in fields of interest?
Sure. Well, one of the things that we always want to do is make sure that we leverage our network. So we want to, see where the person is connected. Is the person connected to a Clark alum? So you want to maximize, Clark alumni services to see who's out there, who might be part of the company that you're trying to reach, who knows who. You definitely want to do that. These days, honestly, there's no easy way to get around than to just go, just kind of reach out, but it's a not softer approach. It may feel a little easier if you're going through someone that you know. If there's a Clark alum, if somebody knows somebody and can make an introduction, that usually is helpful. Now, in terms of if the person is very prominent, what you have to keep in mind is that person probably gets a lot of contact, right? So that's why I like going the alumni route. Because if someone reaches out to me, I'll be honest, if 100 people reached out to me and 10 of them were from Clark, I'm gonna respond to the 10 from Clark first before I get to anyone else. It's just that natural affiliation. So earlier when I talked about, professional groups and affiliations and having activities, that's where that importance really comes in. So if the person that you're following maybe does a presentation, or you heard them on a podcast, or you heard them on an interview, sometimes that's a way to say, I recently heard your interview on, ABC. I was wondering, what advice would you give to whatever? Or I'm reaching out to you at the recommendation of, a friend that we have in common, or your friend who is also, an alumni from my school, recommended that I reach out. So there's creative ways to do it, but when you're actively online as much as possible, whether it's commenting, whether it's responding, whether it's, having something to share, it increases the chances that that person might pause and respond. I mean, I am certainly no celebrity, but there are times where people have been like, oh my gosh, you actually responded. And it's like, well, yeah, especially if I've seen that person's name a lot and I'm engaging in online activities and I'm recognizing that person's name. So that plays a part. So always start with your network and see if you can get introductions that way.
Thanks.
Oh, Clark Connect. Yep, that's I was giving my plug there. Yep, 3,500 alum and Clark Connect. I've actually communicated with one of the students there already. He's in his senior year, and he reached out to me for some advice. So I respond. So take advantage of that. That's huge, and we have Clark alumni in so many different areas. I mean, so many different industries. So you want to leverage that. Any other questions? Everyone feel comfortable when I talked about personal brand and really what that means, and kind of get a sense as to what your homework is and going back, so that you're not just trying to sound like everyone else or sound in a way that attracts an employer, but you've really put some thought into, this is authentically who I am. Let me make sure that message comes across, because that's what's important. Because we already had so much stuff done online because of COVID. It's like everything is done online. But with the example I gave you, people are still getting hired online. My sister, like I said, got a job, a very good one, and she's not even in that a year, and somebody else is trying to recruit her for something else. So it's not that there's not opportunities. We just have to be creative with it.
Abby, you had a question early on in the chat about what might go into an elevator pitch.
Oh, okay. So the things that go into the elevator pitch, I always say, if you had, about 30 seconds to talk to someone, what do you want them to walk away with? What are maybe the 3 things you want the person to know? Those are the things that I would put in an elevator pitch. Obviously your name. So I almost don't even count that. But what are some other things? If you're, depending on who you're meeting, it would be your name. Is it important for them to know that you're about maybe your major and that you're a senior, or the types of opportunities that you're looking into? And I always like to use the word exploring when I reach out. So, my name is Abby. I'm a business management major, and I'm in my final semester, at Clark University. I'm currently exploring, financial analyst opportunities at investment firms in, the New York City area. To me, I always like to use the term exploring because it feels less, what's the word I'm looking for? To me, it puts the person a little more at ease, like I'm exploring. So it makes someone go, oh, okay, well, all right. That feels like an easy conversation versus I'm really looking, or do you know of any jobs? Like, don't say that. They could say yes or no, and then the conversation stops. But when you say exploring, it's like, oh, okay, they're trying to get a feel for it. They're trying to understand. You might get people to slow down and talk to you a little more. Now, obviously you're looking and you want a job, but you want to get as much information as possible. So back to hopefully answering the question, what are the 3 things that you want the person to know in those 30 seconds besides your name? I would put in an elevator pitch, but understand that you're going to switch it up depending on who's the person that you're talking to. Clark alumni meet Wednesday night at 7:15 for a networking event, and everyone should be at that one. Everyone. All right. Don't underestimate networking and those connections. I have been out of college for a long time, and I can probably count maybe 2 situations where I got a job that wasn't through a connection. And that includes the job that I got right out of college. That was one of the 2. Everything else came through a connection. I've been self-employed, got contracts through connections. I got a contract through a connection of someone who knew of me. So here's where personal brand is important. Knew of me, never met me, and made the connection for me. So it really does work. So leverage those networks. Any other questions that I can handle? Just job search in general, managing online, interviewing. What are some things going through your mind that I can help you?
I just had one more question. I've been looking and applying to some internships for the summer, and sometimes in the application, there's a space to put like Instagram or Facebook beyond LinkedIn. Do you suggest including those or no?
Again, if you have your Instagram set up in a way that you feel comfortable sharing it, if someone sees it, they get an insight into your world. If you have interesting projects you are involved in, interesting hobbies, if that's the case, then you can share it. You know, other than that, if you have some stuff that you want to keep private, then I would suggest to keep it private. I'll give you an example. One of my my only brother, he has 2 Instagram accounts. One he keeps private and one he keeps public. The one that he keeps public is the one that shows activities he's in. You see him and his daughter. He loves to cycle. He's a very, person that engages in a lot of outdoor activities. So if someone saw it, they get a little feel for who he is. Some of the other stuff, well, he keeps on wrap because he needs to keep it on wrap.
Thanks.
Good question.
Abby, as we wrap up, what's the best way for students to reach out if they have questions after tonight?
Sure. The easiest way would be to reach out to me on LinkedIn, number one, because if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, then I'm making you get a LinkedIn profile. And then when you have a LinkedIn profile, I am going to take a look at it. So you want to reach out to me towards on LinkedIn. That's easy for me. And then you can just mention that, you have a question from the session and I'm happy to answer it. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you would like to. Obviously, always as a Clark alum, I connect with other Clarkies. So.
Well, fabulous. I think we might be wrapping up for tonight.
Okay. Well, I hope you guys found this information to be helpful, to be valuable, food for thought, and certainly tools to use. If there's anything else, again, that you think of, reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's under my name.